Hi there. Uh, I think a lot of people wondering why the US are not up in arms protesting and very angry, and of course some of them are, but the majority isn't. It's all very quiet, and I think you can explain that by kind of looking at the fear psychology that's going on in the US. Basically, fear. You could tell a little story about it. Let's say you go to a rodeo, and you're the public, and somebody asks you to go on one of these horses or bulls that they're riding the rodeo on. Would you do it? Probably not. You'd probably be hesitant because you can fall off, get bruised, broken, trampled, and hurt in many ways. So you would basically be afraid to do that, and it would basically stop you. And if somebody would say, okay, you have to go on in 10 minutes, you would resist. You would object to it, and the goal of that there is that the fear motivates you to avoid the whole situation that you might get into. It makes you passive. And if somebody says, well, if you don't keep quiet and work really hard, you'll have to ride the rodeo every week, then and you still don't feel up to it, then basically you'll be a very timid person. You'll be intimidated. But on the other hand, if you ask yourself how does the rodeo cowboy feel when he's riding the horse? This guy is terrified. A bull rider. If you're riding a bull, you're terrified out of your wits. So much fear, and same goes of course for Formula One drivers, racing drivers. They go as far as they can go, and when they do, they're terrified. So it's not for a lack of fear that these people are not doing it, but it's a different type of fear, of course. It's instead of locking it out of the bullfight for a rodeo, or let's say not a bullfight, but the rodeo ride, for a rodeo cowboy, it locks them into it. It's a fear of not succeeding in completing the ride, as long as possible. Instead of a fear of failing, at all. So the only difference is that the cowboy has some confidence in achieving the objective, so that he commits to it. And then when he's, in the situation, he'll be scared out of his wits, but that will help him. That will actually be a good thing because it makes him flexible and responsive, and and the same is going on, I think, with the US. People are not offered or suggested or don't have many examples of what could be an achievable objective. The thing that's happening now is that there are more rallies because people can see that other people went to rallies and it was just fine. And then there are some people amongst them that are not that timid. And they'll just stand on the street and shout something like Cenk Uygur and of course Max Kaiser and Peter Schiff. They'll all be shouting and trying to get people together, trying to get people to rally. Because the way it works is just like, if I go on a holiday, then I won't go where my neighbor wants me to go. And you think, well, that's a dumb example, but it isn't. Why am I not going where he wants me to go? Well, because he's not in the room when I'm deciding it. He's not going on the trip. He's not a factor. He's not there. He doesn't influence my decision process. If I, am very good friends with him, he might, but he isn't. Now, all the Americans that are sitting at home, timid, complaining, and a little bit defeatist, saying, well, I hope it will collapse soon. That's defensive aggressive bullshit of somebody that doesn't dare to do anything. You have the illusion that when you say something that something happens, like I have right now. It's just idle talk. You have to do something as well. But so people have the examples of the rallies, and some of them stick out their neck and they give another example. But the only thing that needs to happen is that you decide that there is something that you can do, can achieve, and then you do it. Because that was the point of the holiday example. If you are not doing anything, you don't matter. If you don't tell anybody what you want, then the future will not look like anything that you want. Because nobody will have had any idea that you were even there. You even existed. But the Americans, they get bombarded by images of which basically demeans them. So lots of talk about celebrities, not you. Lots of talk about rich people, not you. Lots of talk about the complexity of the financial system and the difficulty in the housing markets and the injustices that occur. So you better watch out. It's all intimidation. It's all depowering you. It's all, or it can, if you allow it to. But ask yourself, how difficult is it to get together with 5 people in the middle of the street? It isn't. How difficult is it to get together with 100 people? Still isn't difficult. 1,000, 10,000, no. And that's what's happening in France. People know that. They just, that's an achievable goal. And once you do it, you can use the fear as a way to be afraid of not having an impact, of not having heard what you want, instead of being afraid to say what you want and being afraid to forcefully say it so that it actually has effect. You're afraid of not achieving it, so it helps you. It makes you more flexible. It makes you run faster when the guys with the clubs come, because they will, of course. And that's a calculated risk. So that's my take on the whole situation in the US. People are just pounded by propaganda that tells them that there's nothing they can do. One of the factors, I think, also is that these protests are monetized, and political activity is monetized. So you have to have a money bomb, and you have to have 2 million. That's complete and utter bullshit. Just try it. Just go with like 300 or 2,000 people to downtown Wall Street and see if you can prevent any of these bankers to get a bagel in the bagel shop. I think you'll succeed. I think they'll be on the top floor asking for a chopper. And then ask them, could you please stop fucking up our financial system, or just go home because we're basically not needing you, and make sure that our companies are financed. Tell them what you want. See, and don't let the fear lock you out, because the fear will be exactly the same when you're doing it, when you're trying to achieve what you want, as it is when you're not trying to achieve what you want. But thanks for listening.